Good evening and to the monthly Black Voice Hertfordshire community meeting for March. We are pleased to be hosting many leaders in the community as well as members of the public. We also extend our gratitude to the speakers that we have tonight, including Tasha, Austin and Priya Vaithilingam from Hertfordshire, Hertfordshire, who will be discussing the COVID-19 vaccine, Sonia Carr, who will be discussing racism in schools, and Philip Ross, who is the Labour candidate for Police and Crime Commissioner. In today's meeting, we will be discussing productivity related to everything that we have previously spoken about regarding leadership and authority, actions related to education, solutions to the issues within health, and raising the issues experienced by Black people within employment. Before we begin, here are a few things to bear in mind. All of these meetings are recorded for transparency. Respect must be given to all participants of this meeting. Although we're aware that conversations around racism can be political, we would not like this to turn into a debate between the actions of political parties. Rather, we would like collaboration between everyone to reach a common goal. When referring specifically to the Black community, please refrain from using the terminology BAME. And for our speakers, you will be alerted 1 minute before your allocated time is up. And if anyone has questions after the speakers, please wait until after they have all delivered their presentations. Black Voice Letchworth is on many social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Tumblr, Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn under the name Black Voice Letchworth. On Snapchat and Twitter with the username @BlackVoiceL. And we have a website at www.blackvoiceletchworth.com. Our contact number is 07581720032, and our emails are blackvoiceletchworth@gmail.com and bvlinquiries@gmail.com. All of this information will be re-put into the chat for those who missed it the first time. All of the places where you can find us online, all of, like I just said, be put in the chat. A link to a form where you can provide feedback about Black Voice Hertfordshire community meetings will also be put in the chat, and there'll be another link where you can sign up to our mailing list as well if you don't receive minutes, recordings of meetings or invitations. These forms aren't mandatory, but there are quite a few people who come into our meetings that don't receive all of the emails. Now I'm going to hand over to Michaela to provide an explanation for who Black Voice Letchworth is, as well as some additional information about the meeting tonight. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the Black Voice Hertfordshire community meetings. My name is Michaela Clark, and I will be just noting you some information about Black Voice Letchworth. Next slide, please. Black Voice Letchworth is an unincorporated organisation founded by Michaela Clark, together with a group of like-minded individuals, have come together to support those of Black African and Caribbean heritage and those raising children of Black African and Caribbean heritage within the community under the BVL 4 pillars: history, culture, creativity and support. Okay, just letting people in as I'm speaking to you. Apologies for the pause there. Our two main aims are to fundraise for the UK's first Black History Museum, Library and School of Cultural and Creative Arts, and to support the Black community. Next slide, please. Our story. 3 years ago, I visited my local library to take out some books on Black history to teach my child at home. There were only 4 books on slavery found at the library itself and 0 books on Black history in all of Hertfordshire libraries. After becoming a mother, I continually experienced incidences of unhealthy racism and discrimination in its many forms, but ignored it. Following the recent death of George Floyd in America, it made me think about my own child's future, and I decided to use my skills to open the National Black History Museum, Library and School of Cultural and Creative Arts and create a local group, Black Voice Letchworth, to support those of Black African and Caribbean heritage in my own town and beyond. Next slide, please. Black Voice Letchworth is, as you've heard from Chair, available on Facebook and also on Twitter. Our services that we provide are stipulated on our Facebook and updated on our Facebook if you'd like to find out more about what we do and how we do it. Next slide, please. A few house rules. Please remain muted at all times. Please use the virtual Zoom hands up button to give notification that you would like to contribute or write your question in the chat box. Next slide, please. Due to the specific nature of this space, please refrain from using any all unknown ethnic group acronyms and words, i.e. BAME. For those presenting tonight, if you already have those in your slides, we will excuse them for now, but it's just a note for future that if you do hear BAME, obviously because of the specific space, obviously we're more talking about Black today. 3, please wait for a contribution to end before you contribute. Raise voice or voices over a contribution is not permitted. Next slide, please. House rules. Please do not swear or use foul language. Please place all contact information, events, projects of your organisation you wish to share in the chat. Next slide, please. Issues, actions and solutions. Each agenda discussed goes through an issue, solution and action test to ensure productivity from issues raised. Next slide, please. We are looking for volunteers, so if you know anyone that would like to volunteer or aid BVL in any way as far as an advisory capacity, if you're somebody from an organisation or would like to work with us collaboratively, please do let us know. Our information is in the chat box and on this slide. Next slide, please. The next date of the Black Voice Hertfordshire Community Meeting is Friday, the 30th of April. Tickets will be available via Eventbrite for these meetings going forward after April, just to ensure the security of our participants. We have, along with other speakers that are coming to discuss different issues, we have a speaker coming from the University of East London to talk about COVID, the COVID vaccine specifically, and answer any questions that you may have within the Black community or concerns you may have. He's done some extensive research. He's been in the media and also worked with the government. He will be able to answer any questions that you have about the vaccine, what's in it, etc. So that's a great one to join us at if you wish to join us. Next slide, please. Thank you.
I believe our first speaker is Tasha and Priya from Healthwatch Hertfordshire. So I will now share the information for Healthwatch Hertfordshire.
Excellent, thank you, Amy. And I didn't realise you were going to be using our whole names, which is why you just quickly checked through my surname, but you pronounced it beautifully, so thank you. Excellent. Okay, so my name is Priya Vaithilingam, and I'm here with my colleague Tasha. My role is Head of Research Engagement for Healthwatch Hertfordshire, and Tasha is our research officer, but I'm sure you'll introduce yourself again when you come to speak. So if we could just move to the next slide. Excellent. So thank you so much for inviting us here today. What we wanted to do was just tell you a little bit about what Healthwatch is, because not everyone has heard of us, and then provide a bit of information on a project that we're currently working on around sort of understanding people's experiences and views of the COVID vaccine, and then introduce a potential piece of research we're looking to start to get your views on what you think about that and whether you think the topic is of interest. So just to start with then, in terms of who we are. So Healthwatch Hertfordshire is a charity. We're independent of the NHS and government, and our sole purpose is to understand the needs, experiences and concerns of people who use health and social care services within Hertfordshire. One way that we do this is through our research and engagement. And as it says here, what's important for us, which feels like it kind of aligns with the purpose of your group, is that when we gather those experiences and those views, we want to ensure that some kind of change, some kind of something positive sort of comes out of this work. So we share what people tell us, obviously with their permission, with people who run health and social care services, so that they can listen and respond to what people want and what people want to see as change. So, like I said, we do this through research and engagement, and we'll talk a little bit more around our research in just a second. But we also offer a signposting service, so people can contact us to find advice and information on health and social care issues, or to understand more about how to access certain services. And then if I move down to this second to last bullet point there, we also carry out visits to different services under something called Enter and View. So what this is a statutory power that enables Health Watch representatives to go into any NHS funded building to observe how the care is being provided, and come up with sort of recommendations that they would like to recommendations for the organisations to respond to, so they can bring about sort of changes and improvements. Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are kind of like our three key functions, and then the last thing I just wanted to say about Health Watch is that we there's a Health Watch in every county. So we cover Hertfordshire, but there'll be a Health Watch in Bedfordshire, for example, or in Essex. So there's one in every county. And there's also a Health Watch England, which is our sort of umbrella organisation. And we work closely with the Health Watch Network and with Health Watch England, sharing intelligence or working on projects together to ensure that we can influence locally with regulators and inspectors, but also to ensure that we can influence regionally and nationally as well. Okay, so that's who we are. And now I'm going to hand over to Tasha to go into a bit more about our current work.
Thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? So quickly, thank you so much for inviting us here. As Priya said, I'm Tasha and I'm a research officer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, as Priya said, what we're currently doing and then what we hope to do. So could I please have the next slide? So as I'm sure everybody is aware, the COVID-19 vaccination programme began on the 8th of December. So we've got the two vaccinations currently in use in the UK. So you have the Pfizer and the BioNTech one. You've also got the Oxford University with the AstraZeneca. Figures that came out today show that 29 million people in the UK have had their first dose of the vaccine. So as a health organisation, obviously it was quite important to us to understand how people feel about the vaccine. So that's people that have had it and people that are still waiting. So on February the 16th, we launched 2 online surveys. The first one is aimed at people that have not yet had the vaccine. So we want to understand how they feel about it when it is their turn, whether they want it, whether they don't want it, if there's any concerns behind it, and things like that. And then the second survey looks at the experiences of people that have already had the vaccine. So here we're trying to understand what went well, what was positive, what do they think we need to keep with the rollout, but then also is there anything that could be improved on to make their experience a little bit better going forward, especially when we think about that second dose that a lot of people are coming around to now. We also asked people about information and communication, so whether they feel that they have all the information they need, whether that could have been communicated more effectively, and things like that. And as I said, the overall aim is to understand any concerns and then understand where we can make improvements. Next slide, please. So we are just finishing off our first early analysis of the data from the 16th of February to the 16th of March. So the surveys will actually run until mid-May, but we're just doing some early analysis at the moment. And so far we've heard from 1,385 Hertfordshire residents. That's something that we're quite proud of. So what we found so far then is that of the people that have not yet received their vaccine, most people are quite happy to have it. However, there are concerns, and what's important to note is that these concerns are not unique to people that don't want the vaccine. They're relevant for people that do as well. So that's something to be aware of. Commonly, they revolve around side effects and the effectiveness of the vaccine. This is sometimes linked to the fact that it's a relatively new vaccine and people would like to see more long-term data. So those are kind of some of the concerns. Other concerns that we're seeing are a reluctance to take the vaccine due to mistrust in the government. So for some people, this is because of general handling of the pandemic, which has influenced how they feel about the vaccine. For other people and other groups, and this is something I'll get onto as we talk about the research that we're hoping to do, this mistrust is a lot deeper and a lot more systemic. But I'll talk about that when we, in some of the next slides. In terms of information and communication, people across both surveys wanted to see improvements made to this, but we did see some comments that people feel that they have legitimate questions and concerns and they need the information to be able to address these for reassurance purposes and things like that. But unfortunately, we're seeing people being labelled as anti-vax or conspiracy theorists and things like that. Obviously, that's not helpful in any way at all, and people need to be able to talk about their concerns so that we can address them. So that's just something that's quite important. When we look at the people that have already had the vaccine, we're seeing that most people are having really positive experiences. So their appointments were easy to book, travelling to their vaccination centres was quite easy, minimal waiting times when they're actually at the vaccination centre, and lots of compliments to staff for being professional and efficient, but also quite friendly as well. Concerns for people that have already had the vaccine relate very much to the second dose. So some people are concerned about the length of time between the doses, how it was initially 3 weeks, then it's 12, now it's 12 weeks. So that's quite a common one, but also not having their second dose booked. And that tends to have something to do with where you had your first vaccine. So if you are booking through the national booking system and you're either going to a large scale centre or designated community centres, then people are booking both of their vaccines at the same time. But if you're going through a GP, typically you're only booking one vaccine, going for that, and then towards the end of that 12-week window, you get contacted again. But where people don't understand that those two services are running in parallel, and then they see, for example, friends or family are having second doses and they're not, then that's causing frustration and anxiety as well. So that's something that maybe some more information would be helpful around. Next slide, please. So as I said, surveys are open until mid-May. We will continue to analyse the results all the way through and be publishing monthly reports. These will be made available for both the public, but also sent on to local health services as well to give them the opportunity to respond to our findings. And then our full write-up and our final report, that will be published in summer of this year. What's worth noting at this point, as it leads quite nicely into the research that we're hoping to do, is that so far, at least, we've had a limited number of responses from people from ethnically diverse communities. And when we have heard from people, they have tended to be of an Asian ethnicity. What's really important to us is that we can hear from as many people as possible to get perspectives from all communities, from all groups, to make sure that those voices are heard, because when we want to implement change and suggest improvements and things like that, we need to make sure that everybody's opinion is accounted for. So this leads us quite nicely onto our hopeful future research. If I could have the next slide, please. So our thinking behind our next research is that we'd like to engage with some of these ethnically diverse communities in Hertfordshire to firstly address vaccine concerns, but also to look at long-standing health inequalities. So next slide, please. So we've been researching, seeing in the mainstream media and things like that, learning about the legitimate concerns about the COVID-19 vaccines that a lot of people in different communities are raising. And then we also spoke to people that work in different organisations across Hertfordshire to try and understand the views and the concerns of these groups. So as some of you can imagine, some of the concerns that we have come across are more reflective of the general population as well. So we do see concerns about side effects and long-term data and things like that. But we're also seeing a lot of what has been termed in the media, at least, as vaccine hesitancy, stemming from historical mistrust, these systemic issues that lead to poor treatment, and the concerning statistics I'm sure lots of people are aware of relating to the healthcare experiences and outcomes of these groups. So things like Black women are being 4 times more likely to die in childbirth and things like this. So these are all the health inequalities that contribute to the mistrust, and then that impacts the COVID-19 vaccination uptake. Next slide, please. So through the research, through talking with different groups, we've obviously come to understand things that people are already aware of about the complex histories and experiences of different groups. But what that means is different groups have different concerns. So what we tend to see is that when we've been speaking to people of Asian ethnicity, they're sometimes concerned about the vaccine's ingredients. People from the Black community, for them, what we're seeing, at least so far, is it's more an issue of that historical, that systemic trust. What I would like to make quite clear here is that by no means are we the experts in this. So that's the reason that we want to talk to people today about what we're doing, because we would love and are very keen to hear people's opinions, and if they think differently to anything that I've said tonight, then that will be really important to us in driving our research forward. But ultimately, we want to understand the long-standing issues between community groups and healthcare system and how that looks in Hertfordshire particularly. So we want to identify areas of good practice where people have had positive experiences with local healthcare. How has that worked for them? What are the things that we need to keep on doing? And then importantly, where are the opportunities to improve the services? So importantly, this is both in the short term, so that's in relation to maybe like the COVID vaccine, building back and things like that, but also the long term. And when we talk long term, we're talking about addressing the health inequalities. So we're hoping to do this by holding an initial stakeholder event where we speak to different people in the community and talk about some of those issues that I've talked about so far, but also ask them how they think it's going to be best for us to take this research forward. So if you're interested in getting involved in any way at all, if you have anything you'd like to contribute, just a comment, then please do get in touch. I think if you go to the next slide, my contact details are on there. So I'll put them in the chat as well. But yeah, we're more than happy to answer questions. I think you said that you wanted to wait until all the speakers have given a presentation. But whether it's a question or a comment or just anything that you'd like us to consider, then we would be really grateful to hear from you. So thank you.
Thank you very much for presenting, and we'll go on to our next speaker, which is Sonia Carr, who will be discussing racism in schools. So I will just get up that presentation.
Good evening, everybody. My presentation today is called Racism in School. Next slide, please, Amy. We have found many BAME students experience various levels of overt and covert prejudice throughout their day at school. These microaggressions cause pain and untold suffering. Next slide, please, Amy. Race incidents at school. When bullying is motivated by hostility or prejudice based on race or religion, it can be viewed as a hate incident. Bullying in itself is not a criminal offence, but if it is serious enough, it can be classed as a hate crime. Bullying includes cyberbullying. If a student experiences bullying at school, the school should deal with it under the school's own equality and diversity policy. And from experience, we have found a lot of the children we work with, they find their voices are marginalized and their school are not taking the incident serious enough. Next slide, please, Amy. Did you know 1 in 4 Black adults have been sent home from work or face disciplinary action as a result of wearing their hair in a natural or protected style?
Wow.
Nearly 2/3 of Black adults have faced hair discrimination. More than half of Black children have been sent home from school due to wearing their hair naturally or in a protective style. Next slide, Amy. Microaggressions. They cause pain. The victim is alone, suffering, isolation. The slide I've shown you there is a slide from an NHS, and these are things that nurses and doctors were facing on a daily basis. And we can relate that to the children. You know, can I touch your hair? Can I call you the N-word? All these things are painful and are for me and the people I work with offensive. Okay, next slide, Amy. Can I touch your hair? And before you've even answered or responded to the harasser, they've got your hands in the hair. For me, that's like petting a pet in a petting zoo. And people can understand how offensive and how important hair is to a Black man and a woman. And it's, for me, it's very, very offensive to touch somebody's hair without permission. And you have no right to put your hands in a person's hair. Next slide, Amy. This one is very, very, very important. Can I call you the N-word? And they, to make it okay, they say, we are friends. And they know what the victim's gonna react, they know. And then the victim reacts and causes what happens, they hit out. And they end up being the harasser and being excluded from school. Yeah, the schools and sometimes the police do not see this word here as being offensive, and it is. Next slide, Amy. School policies. What we need is much clearer anti-racism policies. And there need to be, well, they are needed to be institutionally embedded in a culture of anti-racism within our schools. Seemingly neutral school policies like uniform and hair policies need to be reviewed from an anti-racist perspective to ensure that, sorry about that, Michaela, Black students are not systematically disadvantaged. I didn't see the word in there, forgot. Next slide. Then we're going to go on to mental health and childhood, and this affects a lot of the children we work with. The proportion of families stroke children from ethnic minority communities who need mental health support and social care, but do not receive adequate support is high, especially in the current pandemic. This has really opened up a can of worms. For example, mental health problems are often unrecognized in the Asian communities, and existing services are unsuitable for their cultural and their social needs. We also know that mental health and social care staff tend to use a more coercive approach to mental health treatment of African Caribbean individuals, and they're more likely to enter the mental health services via the criminal justice system. Next slide, please. Some facts and evidence. What we need is a relatively greater proportion of white families receive a longer term service. There is a tendency for cases involving minority ethnic families to be closed once immediate problems have been patched up. There is evidence that when help is needed, most minority ethnic families are more likely to seek help from other family members and friends. Next slide, please. COVID-19 pandemic. In cases of crisis like the COVID-19, there is a tendency to revert to a familiar ways of working, with the danger that structures of racial inequality are reinforced in a number of ways. There is evidence that the pandemic has disproportionately impacted vulnerable minority families, for example, in relation to educational support, social care, health, and well-being. Next slide, please. Race trauma and the link. We experiencing and distressing an event and arousal. What we are finding with a lot of our children are higher reports of somatization when distressed, e.g. stomach aches, headaches, rapid heartbeats, greater perception of behavioural problems, chronic stress, stroke PTSD, negative emotions and low well-being, depression, anxiety at school. Children have a higher rate of depression in context of discrimination. Hypervigilance, avoidance. We have less willingness to take academic risks, higher school dropouts, and the rates after discrimination is perceived. And what we have found, a lot of our children, they skip school. They have excuses of excuses why they don't go. And we've found a lot of our children are being homeschooled, or they have ECHP plans. And that is a legacy of being racially abused at school, and it's not being acknowledged by the school and the higher authorities. Next slide, please. Racism and childhood trauma. Childhood trauma and trauma symptoms and racial discrimination experience all significantly contribute to post-traumatic stress symptoms and elevated delinquency rates. Crucial that practitioners self-educate about systemic racism and white fragility if we're going to work with people from minority ethnic communities. Next slide, please. What we can do, we can be jargon free, we can listen, we can be non-judgmental, sharing, having a voice, being heard. This is what the children want, and the families. Now that they don't want to be separate, they want to be equal, and they want to be judged on their own merits and achievements and not the colour of their skin. Next slide, please. And these are some of the recommendations that we recommend to you for the staff. Staff training, e.g. unconscious bias training, workshops, awareness events, centralise the voice, the voice of the people of the community. And the background, people need to be informed and know what's out there. Does anybody know when Diwali or Eid is? Why not? You know, you need to know, because the Black people and our Asian community have been here since the 15th century, and it's documented. So we have no excuse not to know anything. B, the early intervention and prevention. You need to be there to help, to assist and prevent things happening. You need to be taking this into your schools, your classrooms, educating your children to say what is offensive. And when somebody comes to you and tells you that they have been racially abused, take it on board, listen to their voice. Because what we don't want is for that young person, A, to be marginalized. They're going to be facing isolation. Listen to what they're saying. You know, educate yourselves and educate the people who are being the harassers. And the very important, this one, being a reflective practitioner, stepping back and assessing one's own norms and values and expectations in relation to people from different minority ethnic backgrounds. Next slide, please. And this is a very good slide. It's called Jane Elliott, Brown Eye, Blue Eye. And I recommend you all to watch this, because this was filmed in the 70s and it's still relevant today. Next slide, thank you. And it says thank you from me. And I am willing to share the slides, and that's why I've left it bits of blank so you can add to it to yourself and put bits in. but these are all relevant cases, live cases, and are evidence-backed. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sonia. So the next speaker is Philip Ross. I have not seen Philip Ross yet, just checking. I don't believe that he is present at the moment. So
I second that. He's not present. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if Michaela, you want to lead the
Discussion.
first part? Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Should I move it to Will to let us know of the questions in the chat that we had from our first presentation, possibly, and then
Cool. Thanks, Michaela. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone. Just a couple of questions. I'm just going to do it by the different speakers that have come in to me. Just two for Tasha and Priya. The first one's from Ellie, who asks, how does one participate in the general surveys about the virus? I've not heard of Healthwatch before, and I'm not sure how one does the survey about the virus. But what you said suggested that they are still open. Do we go to your website?
Yeah, so you can go to the website, but I'm also thinking, Amy and Michaela, whether we could share a link to the surveys with you and you could circulate it to the group. Could we do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That might be the easiest way. So we'll share it with the group that way as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I do apologise if you don't see my video tonight. I'm doing some things in the background, so I apologise if you don't see my face the whole time.
The next question was from Simon. He said, I would like to ask Healthwatch Hearts whether they agree that the media, including social media, have not done any favours in their reporting of the pandemic.
Okay, that's a good question. I'm going to be cheeky and hand that one over to Tasha a little bit, if that's okay, Tasha, to kick it off.
Sure. Yes, so we're definitely seeing repercussions of the media terminology and things like scapegoating. We saw the term super spreader being thrown around a lot at the beginning of the pandemic, which has definitely been completely unhelpful, both in terms of it hasn't done anything to reduce racial tensions, and it also hasn't done anything to encourage trust in the vaccine either. And what we're also seeing within the media, and we've heard this from people that we've actually spoken to within the Hearts communities, is that when a lot of the media is focusing on baying vaccine hesitancy, for example, is the term that we saw a lot of, especially a few weeks ago. For a lot of people, that kind of media attention is actually coming across as quite coercive, pressuring, and having the completely opposite effect of what they're supposedly, what they're trying to achieve. So definitely media, social media, things like that are not really helping anybody at the moment.
Thank you. That's good of you to say, because I think I've got a real downer on media in general, because I think the whole year has been full of mistruths and headline hunting, even from some of the outlets that you'd think would be, well, maybe not do quite so much of that. And I think certainly this, the issues of people not taking it up are just stoked by what the media says. So yeah, thank you. Good one. Good talk as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that takes us to Sonia's talk there. It wasn't so much a question, but a comment that I think might stimulate some debate. Ellie says the time limit to report incidents of race discrimination under the Act is only 6 months, but by the time you have reported the problem to the school, etc., it is easy for that 6 months to go by and then not resolved, and yet it is by then too late to report the problem under race relations.
I have found that, sorry to interrupt you, but I have found that, because with the victim, we are victim led, and it sometimes takes 3 to 4 months to get them to write a victim impact statement. And we're already then 2 months, coming up, and then to get the school to acknowledge anything, and then to be referred. And then we keep getting told to report it via the 101 number. But when we go through the 101 number, we have to get through to the operator, who doesn't always say that it's a hate crime or a hate incident. And we've got a battle. We go to the diversity officer of the police force. It's not hard. And we educate the school. We give unconscious bias training, and we go back and we work with our young men and our young women. And one of the things that we have found successful is a healing diary. We give them a book. They can decorate it. We give them the pens too, and they can decorate it. They can put whatever words in there, because the only person who's going to read that is themselves. Because what I believe, the pen is mightier than the sword. Because what we don't want is for them to be criminalized and end up in the criminal justice system, because once they're there, they're not going to come back. So that's one of the reasons why we give them the book, the pen, and they write down their emotions, and we visit it first week, 1 month, and so on, till we are a year later, and then we revisit it again, and we'll see a different child. And one of the things I always love them to do, because I love colour, it's a Suntofa bird. I get them to colour it, because when they colour the bird, it's always, in the first incident, dark. But then when we get to about 6 months, 7 months, it becomes lighter and more colour. And yes, the 6 months battle is hard. It's not easy. And we have to work with the schools and the education departments. It's not easy. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So I'm being directed to Una had something that she wanted to say. Is that right? Have I misunderstood that? Perhaps I have.
It's just we have a few hands up, so I just wanted
to... sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just bear with me.
Okay. If you need a minute, we can take some more questions from the chat, if that was okay. Well, I just thought, yeah, we had some people waiting. We had 3 people waiting.
So not just not so many questions. Just a couple of comments that I'll chuck out into the group. So Amy says, I definitely think communities, especially the Black community, has been demonized by the media for not taking up the vaccination and therefore endangering everyone without discussing the legitimate concerns that the Black community has. Ellie has also said, I went right up to the Department of Education. This is following her comment that she had. And by then I was too late. For example, in my son's case, the prejudice came from the headmaster. The school committee and staff were totally unhelpful, and the government. So yeah, there was a question here. So I believe that was this is for Sonia. How can we speed up the process? How can we speed the process up with schools?
But first thing, you go to the chair of the governors, right to the chair of the governors. And then this is what works for a chair of governors, and we go to the equality and diversity lead of our local constabulary. And we take it up with them, and then we give them 7 working days from there. And if they don't come back, we come back. And we use the Children's Act. And we carry on, because you've got to carry on banging on that door. They don't always come back to you, because we've got to, they keep saying there's leave, somebody moves on. But you know what? You've got to be persistent. And then we will get the answers, because we have to. It's not an easy journey, but you must not give up. So you've got to be, perseverance is the name of the game. And the 101 number is your first port of call, because that's always the one. The police will always come back and say, have you reported it via the 101? So that's what you've got to do. Am I correct, Joy?
Yes, you are correct.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then
Yeah.
sorry.
Can I just add to that there's always a sort of sense of sorry, I'll just go back a bit. I've actually sat in on a couple of cases pertaining to family members with teachers, and what I found was that with all the goodwill in the world, the conscious bias is always there, and even if the teacher is not aware of it, I am aware of it. Yeah, and there's always a kind of sloping shoulders attitude, a Teflon attitude to children of colour, that they are stereotyped from day one. And I think that needs to change. Also, the language that is used needs to change as well. Because with the language comes hurt. And again, it's the micro aggressions that are shown to the parents. And the parents don't feel they have a leg to stand on or a way to fight back. And that's sad. And so we get a sense of apathy amongst parents who basically say to their children, not so much put up with it, but put your head down, do your work. And that doesn't help a child either. So on both sides, we have problems. And it's sad. It's very, very sad. But we need to change the language within schools as well as the attitudes.
Thanks so much. I believe Glenn's been
Okay,
waiting.
we've got questions now. Yep. Yeah, Glenn, you're next. Thank you. I can't hear you, Glenn.
Can't hear you. I don't know why.
No sound. We can see your mouth moving, but nothing's coming out.
No, you might need to type. You're not even muted.
No, it might be your settings, your speaker settings, mic settings.
Glenn, if you try taking your video off and try taking your video off, it might aid, or sign him back in again. I think he's tried that. Should we move on to the next, if that's possible?
Yes. Next one is Sonia.
Hi, everybody. One of the obstacles I have found is with the the Black minority ethnic community, sorry, Michaela, has been the mistrust in the statutory services. Is going back to the 17th and 18th century, Black people were the guinea pigs. So people think that the COVID-19 vaccine is an experiment. They've been experimented on. And that is the reason why. So please don't say they're anti-vaxxers, because all they're hearing from the press, it's come from the Caribbean, it's come from Africa, it's all negative. And you've got to go back historically. Okay, they were experimented on. And this goes across to America too. You know, what's happening in the past affects our future. So to the Health Watch ladies, that's why it is, you know, it's historical. And then when we have the health inequalities, next week there's a program about maternity care, because we know that Black women are more likely to die during childbirth. And we need to ask ourselves why. So that's what you're dealing with, Priya, okay? Things, you know, things like that. And the vaccine, I mean, we've had the flu vaccine, various vaccines for measles, whooping cough, etc. But people don't think about that. All they're thinking on is the COVID-19. I want to know how many Black people have been tested for either the Pfizer, the AstraZeneca, or the Moderna. How can you tell us? Can you tell us that? Because that's what they want to know. Were there any reactions? Because all we hear of deaths in Denmark and Norway, but you don't tell us the facts. How many Black people here in England were in the trials for the Moderna, the Pfizer, and AstraZeneca? And that should be rolling off people's list, because you want us to take the vaccines, you should be telling us straight, blah, blah, blah. That's what we want to know. Because we can tell you, we already know how many Caucasian people have had it. What we want to know is how many Blacks have had the vaccine, have been in your trials.
Yeah,
and did they have any adverse reactions?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you. Sorry, Michaela, I'm off now.
no problem. Okay, it's Catherine next.
One of my questions about the vaccine, I'm sorry, Priya, it was a question like at the beginning, when they were rolling out the vaccination, I did ask the question to say how many Black people were actually vaccinated, and they said they didn't know. Then I said to them, so how can you say that the community is refusing to be vaccinated when you don't even know how many have? So, can we have those answers? And then my second bit as well is where the vaccination centers are. So I know that there's one in Stevenage at Robinson House, but how accessible is that? And the ones in the community, have they been targeted? So I'm not from Hertfordshire, so I'll give examples for Bedfordshire where I'm from, but I work in Hertfordshire. So I haven't seen a list of where the vaccination centers are. But for example, in Bedfordshire, they've put the vaccination centers not in a community where there is, not in all communities where there's the Black community. So like there's Patna where they haven't put one near London Road. They've put one where you have to, if you're coming from the Black community, it has to be accessible. It's not everyone lives in Queen's Park, and I think the proportionate of Black people who lives in Queen's Park is now less compared to what it used to be, but there's loads of fire the area. So that's the question for Hertfordshire. When you look at the vaccine centers, have you put one where it's accessible, walking distance, because we all don't have cars and we all don't have children who can drive us to take us to these centers. So how can we access them? And they talk about GP surgeries. One of the things that I discovered was that people get removed off the GP's list. And, have we looked at the GP's list and who is still on? How many Black people do they have on that GP's list? And how many, so you're saying people are not, they're going through the GPs, they're going through all of that. And then the other one is that we have quite a lot of undocumented people in this country and people who are still fearful for Windrush. Have we put into place ways round for those people to be able to walk in and get vaccinated? Because yes, we say, Windrush is not over, but you still see, like last year, there was a plane which has been flying kids back to Jamaica and old people back to Jamaica. So you still hear those stories, and somebody who knows somebody. So those stories are more impactful than the media saying, because nobody trusts Pretty, media saying that we're not doing it anymore. So we need, the NHS do it for people with HIV, where you can go get treatment without having to say who you are. So why are we not using those systems in place for those people who are undocumented to go in and get the vaccinations, or those people who worry? Because the fear of the authority is real for Black people. People have been deported. We've seen people who were born here being deported, who had 60 years here being deported. So we've seen the stories, and we know someone who has been deported for, who was born here. So we're afraid. So people are worried about coming to authority. And with this process where you need your name, your address, and half of them, NHS has kicked us off the list anyway. So we need all of that sorted, and some of that research being fed back to us to say, actually, this is what we have. Because right now we are the culprits, not the system. But yet there's a lot of systemic racism that is that has kind of kicked us off the system. So, and then we suddenly, oh yeah, Black people are not being vaccinated. How can I be vaccinated when I haven't had the text from the GP and I'm on nobody's GP's list? So, you know, all of that needs to be kind of, we need that information and that feedback. So that'd be quite helpful. Sorry.
Is it okay for me to come back on that, or
Yeah.
Is that okay quickly? I just wanted to just quickly respond in terms of the GP lists and sort of being able to kind of register with a GP and the kind of fear and things that you just talked about there, because I just think that's a really important point and an interesting one as well, and which I've noted down. What I think would be useful is for us maybe to share some information again to Michaela and Amy to circulate, because you don't actually, in terms of registering with a GP, you don't have to provide ID and you don't have to provide your address. So that shouldn't be a barrier, and that shouldn't be something that is required of you in order to register with a GP practice and therefore be on the list to be contacted when the vaccine is available for you. So I'm just thinking in terms of sort of people's rights around that. We've got some information on that, and we wrote an article on it to share with the public, so it might be useful to share with this group so that you can kind of share with people as well, just in case that helps with some of those kind of you know, barriers that people might be facing.
Sorry, Priya,
yeah.
Did you say how long? Sorry, sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, but did you say you're going to share the information of you don't have to share the information you've just stipulated to join a GP?
If you're happy for me to, yeah, I can send you a link to.
Yeah. But I was told at my Letchworth GP when I moved to this area that I couldn't join without that information.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I'm not sure why GPs ask you. I'm not sure why GPs ask for it, but the information I share, it's got a link to the NHS website, which clearly says that you don't have to provide ID. And I think if, yeah, anyway, I'll share the link. So I'm not, it's links to NHS information, which, yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, I can circulate that. And then I just wanted to just quickly say, just come back on that point around the that feeling that there are sort of groups that are being, that are kind of being told that they're reluctant to have the vaccine, and there's sort of a reluctance around the kind of take up, and where does that information come from? And that's a again, like a really good point, and it's something that Tasha and I have been trying to look into ourselves, haven't we, Tasha? Where does that data come from? And Tasha, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things we've been finding out is that when people go for their vaccine, they're not necessarily asked about their ethnicity, which means that there isn't, our understanding is that there isn't comprehensive data that shows who's taking the vaccine and who isn't, based on your ethnicity. So in terms of those assumptions around different groups as to whether they're taking up the vaccine or not, our understanding is that a lot of that is based on like research and surveys and things that were done around people's views and motivations before getting the vaccine. So it's basically it's based on people behaving the way that they say that they would behave, which we know isn't actually always true. So people may say that they're hesitant, doesn't mean that they actually won't get the vaccine. So Tasha, did you want to come in on that, or does that kind of cover it?
Yeah, no, it pretty much covers it. There was a couple, I think 2 or 3 big studies that came out towards the end of last year, maybe around the autumn or the winter. And they basically said, do you want the vaccine or not? And so that's where this idea of hesitancy has come from. But like Priya said, people are asked about their ethnicity when they go and get their vaccine, but it's not a forced answer question. You don't have to put it. So if people are skipping through, then we're not able to collect the data on it, which makes things tricky, and it makes the picture a bit more fuzzy, I guess.
Yet we are saying that the BAME community is not, well, sorry, the Black community is not taking this vaccine when we don't have the data. I mean, I mentioned this because I knew at the start I was working with one of the NHS who were delivering it, and I did ask the question, and they said we didn't have the data, but they, you know, so I did say, why are we saying this if we don't have the data? Because the more you say loads of people, even if I was feeling confident to get it, but if I hear that everybody else is not doing it, then I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't do it. So I don't know whether this is being used to stop us getting the vaccine, you know, because it could be somebody's at the, don't want to say, but one way of reducing the number of Black people, you know, getting it and stuff. So it could be being used to negatively impact us in a way that there's more people less taking it and we're more risk and exposed. So there might be a sinister reason behind it, but yeah, so that's just my take, is that could we have more publicity to highlight the fact that there's no statistics and there's no actual data supporting this evidence, and could we be fact checking the BBCs and the ITVs of this world in terms of this when they speak? That's all.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Glenn now. Glenn, take the stage.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think my point has been really, it was well articulated by C-Ward. So I think that's why I couldn't actually be heard, so that she can articulate it for me. I would still just add to it. It's regarding mistrust, regarding the laws that came in at the back door that sort of led to Windrush, right? And also in terms of, at the moment, we're hearing a sort of a positioning by the government where they want to do compulsion, where they're looking and trying to sort of access this sort of emotional, the emotional aspect of the nation to target in terms of like the homes, because the homes were severely affected, right? And they want to actually, in terms of the healthcare workers there, want to actually look in terms of compulsion in that aspect. And I'm seeing in terms of that, you might have that positioning again, where we don't know what sort of laws that would come into place, what sort of rules that they would bring into place that would again affect a community. Because if they are actually taking names and everything for people who are documented having the vaccine, one of the problems that can result of that, we don't know what the government is going to do with that information. We don't know exactly how they're going to use it, and we don't know how it's going to affect the community. So there is going to be mistrust, right? And this is not something that we are imagining. This is something that is real. It is there, right? So it is a problem. So my question is, how are we going to actually bring this to the forefront of the discussion and not let it just hide in the background and hover in the background and cause a problem to our community again? Because it's not a dream, it's not an imagination, it is something that is actually there. And we need to speak about it openly to make sure that the government actually, in terms, the government is very much transparent. I know in New Zealand, they have a system in place in which they allow undocumented people to be able to actually have the vaccine without being identified, right? And we have certain system here in which certain people get treatment without having to be identified, such as was mentioned in terms of the HIV. So we have a way that that can be done. And I think we need to look at that and not let, any sort of laws or rules come into place that is going to affect the community, the Black community. So I would, I think that's what I would probably add to what C-Ward has well articulated before.
We have some more questions.
All right.
I have a limit on just the time so we can get all questions in today. Who's next? Yeah, you can let us know.
Yeah, it's Mark.
Thanks, Una. Hi, everyone. Apologies to everyone else who hasn't got a Yorkshire accent. It's okay. The question I wanted to ask was that some of the information that's coming out, it makes it sound as though it's only BAME communities BAME and Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities that aren't taking the vaccine. But the reality is it's working class white people as well that aren't taking it. So the media would have you believe that that's the reason, that it's because of a Black issue that we're not taking it. That's not the case. And the other thing is that some Black people are looking at the evidence of their own eyes. They're seeing that the African continent of 1.2 billion people has only got 1,800 deaths across that continent. So I think the issue shouldn't be about deaths. It should be about long COVID and the effects that are going to last for a lot longer. It's messaging. It's always about the message we get across. Until they come up with a 3-word slogan that speaks to Black people a lot clearer, there's going to be a low uptake in the vaccines. And the last thing I'll say is that the travel distances to some of these vaccine centres, if you haven't got a car and you're working 40 hours plus per week, then when do you find time if your employer's not willing to let you go and take these vaccines? If it costs you to go, then it's a barrier. And I think that's a big obstacle. I'll stop there because I could talk all night. Thanks.
Okay, there's nobody else want to talk?
No, we've got 5 people waiting. Okay, we have Sue. I think Sue has a question. Then we have Andrea. Andrea, you have a question? We have Sue, Andrea, we have Jonathan, we have Catherine with her hand up, and we have Mark's hand.
I can't see any hands up at all on my screen. I don't know why.
So Mark, so you don't need, you can pop your hand down because you've had, yeah.
See, I can't see the hand up for Mark. I only saw it in the chat. I've been texting in the chat.
Oh, right. Okay. Should we have Sue next then?
Thanks, Vaithilingam. Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to raise the issue of data. So when it first began, people, the media and generally people were talking about the BAME community not wanting to take the vaccine, I began to talk to people who I speak to within my community in Wiltshire. And they were saying, but who exactly are you talking about? Because as far as I know, people are going, and this is probably an older age group, I would say, people that are generally, being asked to go and take the vaccine at the moment. They were saying, oh, but we have been, and then there were other people who are saying, yes, but why don't you understand why there's a lack of trust? And that the vaccine is new and we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We don't know what the effects will be. So don't you understand why there is a mistrust? So, but the main question was, who exactly are you talking about? So I'm in a position where I could go and ask for more information on data because I'm a counsellor and I sit on the Health Scrutiny Committee at Eastern North Herts NHS Trust. And the data that came back was really sketchy, and categories where the people were recorded in categories like Asian other, and it, such a wide kind of area that it was covering. You couldn't tell exactly where communities were or people were, and Asian other it just doesn't cover exactly who people are. So I think there is a question about data, because if they're going to support communities more with this, who exactly are they going to talk to when their data is really sketchy? So that was my point.
Okay, we've got Andrea next. Andrea W.
Great, thank you. Yes, I think Sue's already touched on slightly some of that. And I know when I went for the vaccine, they did ask me specifically about the category, so that was really helpful. And the data is only as good as the information that they get. But I just wanted to touch also on the clinical trials. From the UK, from what I was told, there was no Black, BME, no patients in the UK. But then I was told Pfizer, then they were going to other countries. I think they had about 10 different countries that they tested this thing in. There was about 10% obese, 10% had diabetes and long-term conditions, but that was really poor from the BME community. But that's not surprising because obviously of the mistrust and the misinformation. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we've got Jonathan next.
Sorry, I couldn't remember how to turn my camera on there for a second. Oh yeah. Just a couple of issues. One, I want to pick up on what Mark said. Is that about white people not taking the choosing not to take the vaccine? I'm registered diabetic. I've had the text to say do it. I've not had it done because I'm skeptical. As part of my job, I go in and out of people's houses, schools, offices, and I have been lucky enough to keep working throughout the entire pandemic, going on 18 months now, and I've not been ill. And I do wonder what the benefits are for me. I've seen, as a result of it, I've seen at least in 2 or 3 instances, especially in the last month, where I've met customers and clients of mine who've had the vaccine and they've all had to take time off work because they've all been sick or had some sort of adverse reaction to it, which doesn't fill me with confidence. Like I said, I've been lucky enough. I don't really do ill. So for me to then see that, I'm thinking, do I need to take time off work just to sort of have the vaccine and then have the side effects and then I'll be okay? And nobody's told me anything. My GP's always argumentative with me. Because I'm diabetic, it's, oh, have you had a diabetic check? And I think, is that relevant? I just want to know what's in it for me. And another point Mark raised was that you got to travel stupid distance for it. I've got to go to Shefford. I live in Letchworth. Why should I have to go to Shefford when I can't go to my local surgery? And also because I haven't had the vaccination, some of you know, I'm married to Michaela. We've got a son. Michaela is originally from Trinidad. If we had a family emergency in Trinidad tomorrow and we had to drop everything and get our next flight to Trinidad, would we be allowed to travel because we haven't had the vaccine? That's my point. Sorry, I'm done.
No worries. Okay, we've got Catherine next.
I was just going to ask for this to be taken back as feedback as well. The fact that what Nathan just highlighted about being ill when you get the vaccination. So one of the other things that needs to be put into place is not people to get statutory sick pay, because that's 98 quid a week, but actually to be paid a wage for the days that if they fall ill by taking the vaccination, because the reason why the government is now forcing social care workers is because if they fall ill, they will only be paid statutory sick pay. And people are thinking, I can't afford to live on 98 quid a week because people don't know how long it is. So we need to put into place some form of proper payment for people to know that actually, if you get laid down with taking the vaccine, you are not going to be financially a thing. And also, I know in NHS it doesn't fall as part of your sick days off, but I don't know whether it's across the board in the private sector, and a lot of BAME community do work in the private sector. And so that's all of the things that needs to be put in place. Because if I work for Deliveroo and I get laid off for taking this vaccine, who's going to pay my bills? It's another thing. Sorry. Why am I saying
No
sorry?
worries. I don't know. Okay, we've got Will. Oh, sorry, we've got Sonia next.
Hi, this is to Priya and your colleague Tasha. As it's Ramadan, right, I need to ask you, what provision has been made for the Muslim, because there are many within the Black communities that are Muslim. So what provisions have been made? From dawn to dusk, they can't drink or eat, so that will affect them taking the vaccine.
Tasha, did you have a view on that one? I'm not sure it would.
I have read something, but very briefly in passing, so I don't want, I don't wish to speak, you know.
No, but if you could just let us know, so we can encourage those amongst us who are Muslim to take the vaccine. So you have it after they break their fast.
From what I've read, religious leaders are saying that it's fine to take the vaccine with religious commitments. But again, that is something that we can confirm and send out.
Please, can you do that? I would appreciate that. Thank you very much, Tasha.
Tasha, sorry, just to add in, if you could find out, if you're able also to find out if they did consider people's religious background, not just from the Muslim faith, but there are branches of the Christian faith also, but just faith in general. I think there are many obviously different faiths and lifestyles, and did they consider those things when they were putting together the vaccine, or did they think of just the majority and just get it out there? I think that would be helpful. We don't know, but if you could, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
And that's going back to the flu vaccine, because it has gelatin, and gelatin is a derivative of pork. And when they were giving it out to the school children, they didn't tell those vegetarian or vegan parents that the flu vaccine has gelatin in there. And that's why we were asking. Thank you.
Okay, we've got Will up next.
So I just wanted to go over some of the comments that's been made in the chat as all of this has been going on. A comment actually that Sonia made in the chat was the fact that the travelling community also refusing the vaccine. Eddie has chimed in saying that there's a lot of carers have not had their vaccine for the reason, as Mark said, so chiming in with Mark said, hard for it to get done. Michaelia says, I think quite rightly, that Asian other is not a race, and I do wonder, with Asia having such a vast population, what that even means, really, what someone from Sri Lanka to someone in Mongolia, but how that covers. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that. Val said that she's is NHDC, I'm assuming, rather than HNDC councillor, tried to find out the answers about local provisions for those who work long hours or do not have transport. Said that Sue may be the best person to follow this up. Sorry if I don't manage to get through everyone. Ellie also says, appreciate that many Black people suffer from health inequalities within the NHS, but from a medical point of view do not know enough about the physical differences. Say, is blood type more relevant when it comes to how someone reacts to a vaccine, or is it purely an individual response? There's an awful lot going on there, and I'm sorry if I ever don't manage to get in everything here. I just want to finish on this comment again from Ellie, saying, as someone on a 0-hour contract, she had to cancel her work in order to, I assume, make that journey and make that trip. I do keep them coming, and I'll stay on top of them as best I can. There's just there's an awful lot coming, which is fantastic. But yes, okay, that's me.
Is that Sonia next?
Sonia, yeah.
Or yeah. Was it?
I didn't take my hand down. Sorry.
Oh, it's Sue next then. Sue.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask Sonia a question, if that's all right. So on racism in school.
Hello, Sue.
Hi, Sonia. So my daughter is mixed race.
Mhm.
And she attended a special needs school in Hertfordshire that, in my opinion, was appalling, that they knew nothing about racism. And so for children with special needs, I think that's, you know, an added layer to how difficult it is for them. Hard enough for kids anyway, but when you've got a learning difficulty, it's even harder. So I just wonder what your experience is of supporting children with special needs.
What I've done the Jack and Jill doll. I bought a magazine called Ebony. Okay, and then we've gone to the head teacher. We've gone to the teacher and we have delivered our training on the unconscious bias. We've got them to take one of their staff training days, and we've educated the whole school, because then when you educate the whole school, including the governors, you then educate the pupils. And then what I say, little dolly steps, and you've got to carry on again. When you pick your child up from school, you speak to her teacher, how did it go? And ask for more ethnic books. You know, we want to read about Jack and Jill, we want to read about Leroy and Sarah too, you know? So you get the books, and there are enough Black authors out there to have them stocked in the school library. But how old is your daughter?
Oh, well, she's grown up now. She's in her 20s.
Okay, so I thought sorry.
No, she's but even when she was in her teenage years, attending a special needs school for 2 years, she was the only Black child in the school. So that was really difficult, because I was a lone voice standing up and saying, why is she being treated this way? And sometimes it's so covert that they were denying it was racism, and of course it was. You know, so it can be quite hard to fight it on your own, really.
It's not easy. It's not easy. The struggle is real. And all I can say, we've got to carry on going back there, knocking on that door, speaking to that teacher, speaking to the head teacher, and then the head teacher, the deputy head teacher, and also the secretary, the school secretary. You've got to carry on and carry on. Oh, we don't mean we got Black friends. No, we don't want that. We don't want that. And then this is what you've got to do, carry on. It's not easy, it's not an easy journey, but don't give up.
It's a fight, believe me.
I know, Sue, I know. And thank you. And
thank you, Sonia.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay, we've got Will again.
Hi, yeah, me again. As we came back to talking about education, there were just a couple of questions from way back when. I'm sorry that I haven't picked them up yet on this, both for Sonia. I'll just give both of them, Sonia, is that okay?
That's fine, of course you can, Will, no problem.
Okay, so Kate asks, should we be campaigning for a change to the limitation on 6 months for reporting?
Oh, yes, you should. And you go to your chair of governors, education authority, and you write them that letter. And the chief constable of your local constabulary. You say to him, it's 6 months. It takes 3 to 4 months to speak to the victim, and we're victim led. And you know, we can't make them write it, but you know, this is hurt feelings. You've got to tell them there's a victim impact statement. It takes you 3 months to get to this, because it's in the words of the victim. It's not your words, it's their words. And then you've got to speak to all parties. Your 6 months is already up, case closed, and that's what they want. So what you need to do, education authority, chair of governors and the chief constable, and say, this is what we want, and you've got a campaign. And if that fails, Boris Johnson.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And then there was just one more.
Yes, that's okay.
From Mark Morris. Do you find there is a different response from academy schools compared to LEA-run schools?
Is that for me or for Mark?
I think that was for you. That was from Mark.
Oh, from Mark. Yes, I do. Because academies are self-governing. They're a business. And I feel they can do what they want. And you've got to start with when you go to an academy, chair of governors, because that's where the headmaster will send you, chair of governors. So yes, and a lot of schools have become academies now. And that is one of the battles. It's not easy, and there are very few schools that are actually what called state run. A lot of them are academies, but they all have their own equality and diversity policy. And you ask for a copy of the equality and diversity policy. Ask for it, and then you tell them this is what's happened to child X, Y, Z, and you point it out. And what are they going to do? Because they've got to act within their equality and diversity policy.
Am I okay to just comment on that? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course you can.
No, I agree with Sonia, because what the beauty of the LEA schools is, at least it might not be the perfect policy, but at least all the schools are bound to that same policy. When you've got academies, it's all fragmented. So like you said, one school will have one policy that doesn't match up with a neighbouring school, and it's difficult to have that consistency then.
True, Mark, true.
Okay, Sue again.
So sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
Oh.
Is that any more from the chat?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. There was just a few that I had missed because my vision went blurry. That was fun. One from Jonathan, a bit of a cross-section covering both the vaccine and education here. So Jonathan says, following on from what Catherine had said, one of my colleagues asked me if he could claim universal credit while he was off with COVID instead of SSP because he would get more money. And Joy has chimed in saying that each area has a safe neighbourhood police. There's a fair few links on there for various different bits and pieces. People have been chucking up the NHS link. I know that Priya has put in the rights around registering with a GP. Kate has chucked up a list for safer neighbourhoods. Is that right? Areas or safer neighbourhood police officers, only for one part of Hertfordshire.
Sorry, I thought it was for all, but it wasn't.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think that's pretty well it for the time being.
Okay.
Joy next.
Joy next. Yep.
Yeah, it's just to carry on from the safe neighbourhood officer. I regularly meet up with one for Welling Hatfield. In some areas they're actually called community police officer, and he or she may be an inspector. They are easy to talk to. I think that anybody having concerns should try and meet with them regularly if you can, to discuss your concerns, especially when it comes to schools as well, because each area also is dealing with across county lines where children are being targeted and bullied at school, regardless of colour. So they are looking out for a lot of disparities in schools, and usually find that it's the children who are coming from poorer backgrounds, not necessarily black backgrounds, but sometimes poorer backgrounds that are being bullied and groomed and so forth. And that's where you need to get your community police involved, your neighbourhood policemen involved, not the PSSO, PSCO, whatever they call themselves. That's what I needed to say.
Okay, we've got Amy next.
Thank you. This follows on from Joy, what Joy just said. But yeah, in my old school, because I'm a student, so I went to school in Bedfordshire. Bedfordshire has a rising, quite a big issue with county lines, and the way that the police, because the school didn't like the presentation either, the way that police decided to deal with it was to give this like assembly in our school, but it was so antagonistic. I mean, it started on a bad note because they brought in handcuffs and the handcuffs got stolen by someone in my school, and So they immediately came in with like this antagonistic way, and they didn't try and prevent people, make people feel safe against like the county line stuff. It showed us like all the bad things that could happen to us if we went to prison. So we got shown like shivs, we got told this method of like mixing sugar and boiling water, and they'll harm you, and it was basic, and they told us how terrible it is and traumatizing it is to sit in a little, to go to court, and they just like, it was all scare tactics rather than actually, if someone approaches you, how do you get out of that? So I think that concerns definitely need to be raised with the police, not just on how they're dealing with county lines, but how they're talking to kids about it, because that was an outrageous assembly.
Can I just follow up on that again, please?
Sure, you can, Joy. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad to say that when in Hatfield possibly looked at Bedford and saw that it was wrong and came in with a different tact altogether. They've learnt by experience. But what they have found is that a lot of schools did not want to take that up, the option up to actually have the police in talking about cross-county lines. In fact, they showed a complete sense of apathy to the whole subject, even when there were children who were clearly suffering within the schools. So it's not for the want of trying. The police have tried a softly approach. Unfortunately, some schools have just closed their doors to it. And so the problem still continues, sadly.
Okay, we've got Sue next.
Thank you. I just wanted to go back, sorry, we keep jumping about here, but I just wanted to go back to the take-up of the vaccination. Would it be okay for me to feed back some general themes to the East and North Herts NHS Scrutiny Committee? And if I was to do that, so what would you want me to say that would enable authorities to target in a better way, to support, sorry, not target, that's the wrong word, support people in a better way? So I was thinking maybe Joy or Sonia or some of the people that have been, sorry, Catherine as well, you were quite vocal about the obvious reluctancy on the part of people from Black communities not to take up the vaccine. So what would you, if you were in my position, what would you want me to be saying?
I'd want the figures. I'd like the figures of how many Black people have been tested. That's what I want. And it's the Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and the Moderna. That's what I would like. This is the question. That's, this is me. Okay, I would want to know how many of them were in your trials. Okay, how many? Yeah. And that is very
was
important.
It tested on Black people for starters?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to know if any Black people were part of your trials, because we keep hearing about the trials, and how many people have been blah blah blah, but how many of them were Black?
Mm-hmm. And if you've got that information, why is it not being published?
Yeah, and also another question I did ask was how many Black people have died, and they told me they don't record the colour of a person when they're dying. Really?
Rubbish.
But that's what I was told. I asked. And yet I saw in the first lockdown how many Black frontline staff were killed, and I think it was like 95 or 97%, and that was quite high. And yet they could not tell me how many Black people, and I don't live in Hertfordshire, by the way, have been killed by COVID or died from COVID, because it's not recorded. That's what they said to me. And I asked Public Health England.
I mean, I can't answer to that, to be honest with you. I don't know if anybody else can, but you know, we need more information. That's the general theme, isn't it?
You know, because I say, sorry to interrupt people. I say we're not mushrooms. We don't want to be kept in the dark. You said in the first, you know, we're not educated. We don't speak the Queen's English. Now we speak the Queen's English. Now we've got the degrees. We've got some of us have got 3 degrees, and yet still you don't give us the information. You know, and many of our families are 4th and 5th generations.
Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. That's really helpful.
There was just another one in the chat for Sue to ask them to recognise the mistrust and misinformation that is circulating. The charge would obviously be low, so it makes no difference. That was Andrea's.
And is there anything that the authorities can do to address that mistrust? That's the thing, isn't it? Is what do you do about it?
Take it off Facebook. Take it off Facebook for starters. Take it off Facebook. All those social media platforms, take it off there. We don't need it on there. And you go out there, you speak to those faith leaders, those who run the mosque, those Pentecostal churches, you tell them, you educate them, and you get them to be the vaccine centre right there.
Yes, I definitely agree with you that that the hype in the media is detrimental. You know, it's really divisive, and it's not always based on fact, and it's just not helpful at all. Yeah.
Okay, we've got Amy, your hand's up. I don't know if you want to speak again.
No, I'm really sorry. I know that's really annoying.
Sue was up again as well.
Keep forgetting.
Sorry, I'll just take my hand down. Sorry.
All right, Catherine, you're next.
Oh God, I was listening to what you were saying about the effects of long COVID, and I think I've lost my train of thoughts. Can I come back? I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, Mark.
Thanks, yeah.
Before Mark starts, we've got 15 minutes left.
Okay.
No!
Sorry. Yeah, just like I said, but the fact that people assume that 90% of people survive after they've had COVID, that is a high percentage, and people think, well, if that's the risk, I'm willing to not take the vaccine. But it is those long-term lung conditions that people are likely to face that's an issue, especially for the black community. And to go off topic again, I think we talked about the police involvement in gang crime and county lines, and the stop and searches looking for weapons. So I'm going to go on a ramble here, so apologies, 15 minutes, right? So when Sarah Everard was the protest vigil that happened, what really surprised me was the number of women who said they would hold their keys in their hands when they left the car because they felt vulnerable. And what that said to me was, as well as that being an issue that needs to be resolving, some of the knife crime and some of the kids that are carrying weapons are carrying those weapons because they feel vulnerable. So it's not always an attack. It's sometimes feeling as though they need to defend themselves. And that's where community policing needs to come in and be more visible. Rather than driving, they need to start walking and being visible in these communities. I'll end there.
You reminded me, Mark, what it was.
Okay, Catherine, go on.
So, first of all, I think the use of county lines is a stupid idea. It's just young people being groomed to sell drugs. So I don't get why they needed to give it such a name that actually young people aspire to be in a county line gang, you know, because it's been glamorized so much on the media. So that's a negative thing. But the issue about grooming and what to do with grooming, I think the police force need to be recruiting youth workers to deliver that part of the work, because the police service is not the best deliverer of how to stay safe. And having worked alongside the police force with the youth offending team in my previous role, it used to be easier for me to talk about and, you know, offending behavior and what not to do as a youth worker than it was for the police officer to talk about it. Because remember, some of these young people actually need the whole rubber stamp that the policeman knows me or has arrested me for them to get the kudos in the gangs. So it doesn't give the positive impact that it's supposed to have. It actually helps to the negative impact. So there's some of the changes that needs to happen, and who cares what county the kids are coming from and what lines are being crossed? The fact is kids are being groomed to sell drugs in their areas. A lot of the kids who are selling drugs are not moving from county to county. It's the big people who are. So we don't really care about that. And drugs used to always move across borders anyway. So why do we start giving it this lovely idea that it's county lines and we have kids going, I'm in a county line gang? Don't need it. Let's take that away. There's times when the police do great, when like in Bedfordshire, when they wanted to start the whole American colored gang schemes, and the police decided we're not going to tolerate that and we're not going to name it that. We're just going to say kids trying to hang around in groups, and that stopped it. And we never had the whole red bandana, green bandana stuff in this country because the police didn't, yet we now decided to give them this whole county lines. Who cares? A kid is a kid, and a kid is being exploited. Why are we not using the same policy we have on grooming to kids who get dragged into this drug dealing because they're children? Why are we not using safeguarding methods rather than making them into offenders and putting them through the criminal justice system?
Absolutely.
Why are we, yeah. So that's my little, because these are kids who've been groomed. These are kids who are being groomed by adults, because half of the people doing this are not children, they're adults. Why are we not using the same powers we have when, like pedophiles? Why are we not using the same thing? Going in, if you know an adult is grooming a child to sell drugs, treat them the same way you would treat a sex offender and arrest them. And, that's just me. Pass that on to anyone you can, please.
Well said, Catherine.
Sorry.
Okay, we've got Mark again. Is your hand up from before, Mark?
That's a mistake. I'll take that down.
All right, we've got Joy.
Yeah, carrying on from the information on why people are not taking up the vaccination, and Sonia's point on church leaders and Pentecostal churches and so forth. You'll be interested to know that it only featured about 3 months ago. Some of the videos that were going around last year with certain doctors and one particular nurse based in America who was promoting anti-vax and whatever else that was nasty. You'd be interested to know that they have been taken down and now being taken to court, the 3 main offenders. It's a shame, though, that the media haven't followed up on that story so that the people who are believing in their rubbish could actually understand that these doctors or so-called nurses were fake and were talking absolute rubbish. And they have been taken down, and they will be in court. Just have to look it up. Unfortunately, the media, for whatever reason, haven't followed up on the story. It only warranted, for all the damage that it did last year, it only warranted 5 minutes on mainline TV news about 3 months ago. And that's what I'd like to see, more of those stories by the media denouncing the fake news people. Yeah, that's what I need to say.
The churches are powerful. It's a form of grooming.
If I can just come in there with them.
Sorry, Joy. Forgive me, Joy. Forgive me.
You can't.
Forgive me.
I just want to. I have to say this, obviously. Sonia, bless your heart. I have to come and say this because this is a very impartial space, politically and otherwise. So we
We can't point fingers at the churches, especially the black churches. Sonia, you crazy? You trying to take us on? What are you trying to do to us here?
I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going. I know where I'm
the
going.
council and the government, I'll let you pass, but not the black churches. Go, you trying to kill?
Oh my God! Sorry, forgive me.
They are powerful.
Black churches, though.
But I just want to just contribute that with regards to just connecting with the black community, a lot of organizations, because of the history and how things are set up in our country, culturally and economically, there's this separation. Again, with the black community specifically, there's a huge mistrust of everything, of just everything, every decision making. So there might be some apprehension with organizations and institutions coming into those spaces like churches to find out more about why people won't take the vaccine, etc. I will say as well, contributing some concerns from where I'm based in Letchworth, from the black community. There are some concerns that the push for voices at present, because obviously Black Voice Letchworth is about putting voices forward, black voices forward. There is a concern that their voice being put forward, how it's going to be used. Is it going to be used for good, or is it going to be used for nothing, basically, to happen? I know where I am, there seems to be a clear separation between the black community and leaders. And I started off this process with it being quite impartial to kind of make up my own mind about whether that was something we needed to tackle, or come at it as if I've never seen racism before. And unfortunately, there are some issues in that area, especially when it comes to the black community access and just basic areas of just support and concern. So when it comes to things of health, which is for all of us more of a serious support in your life that you need, there's not just a barrier, there's a huge wall, because in the basic sense, for just where I think more personally for me, my white friends would find comfort in, say, going to their local councillor, or going to a meeting, if there was going to be like a town meeting or something on COVID and what it's for and what's in it, etc. I think the white majority of the population will feel more comfortable going along, because they're cultural, and that space supported primarily for white males, females. In every space where I live, that's what the support. There's no space where I live for black people, and that I will say that very clear. There's no space where I can go and feel like I won't be affected because of my race. There's been spaces that are for community, but that I know I will be marginalized. I tell these people this story. They have this when it first started up, a project where I lived, where it was about getting food that was going to go to landfill. And I really wanted to support that, because another one of my passions is environment and stuff and things like that. So I really wanted to support it. So they had a system there of queuing, which we were all told the rules. Well, I was told the rules at the beginning, and I thought, great, they've got rules, fantastic. But I noticed that the majority white attendees that came weren't following the rules at all. And I, being a rule person, thought, oh, wow, okay, no one's following the rules. And then one time I saw my friend in the queue, and she said, oh, come in. And the manager was called. And the manager, who'd been so nice to me and complimented me about different things, she looked at me as if I shot her dog and told me, you get back in the line. You cannot break the rules. There are rules here. I thought I killed this lady's something. It was so bad. And I never went back, because I knew that or, you know, yes, that was the rule, but I know that for the last 2 months that I've been coming, that she wasn't implemented it. So it makes you feel as if you're not welcome, is what I'm saying. When things like that happen, it makes you feel that you're not welcome. So generally speaking, when I tell another Black person who's lived in Letchworth for longer, they said, why did you go there? You know, it's not for us. And they're right. But I part because of the person I am, I want to be optimistic. That's why I've done these meetings, etc. But that's, you know, the areas that are being put out there for us to find out more information are not geared for our culture. I'm sure other ethnic groups will say the same. It's not geared for us because, one, they're saying BAME, so they're putting us all in this ball. Asian culture, within that, they're different dynamics, and it's a different, completely different culture, and how why they would make choices based on that culture and lifestyle would be different than Black culture. So they're not really thinking about that. They're not thinking of different religions. Within the Asian religion, there's many. Within the Black community, there's different religions.
2 minutes.
They're 5 minutes. Thank you, Kate. So they're not really considering all these things. They're being, someone said, lazy. I don't know. I just think that I think there's this thought of, just because we're the majority, everyone should just do it like how we do it. And then it will be fine. It will be fine. You know, I recently told someone about the hesitancy of the Black community, and that was misconstrued as BVL is anti-vax, which is an ignorance on the part of leaders, because they haven't actually researched to find out that actually within the Black community there is medical racism, which is a huge thing for the Black community. But they're coming from it from a white perspective. So that's a huge barrier as well. I think not just for the Black community, but I think also for organisations that are trying to find out information as well for you guys, which I'm sure you found out as well. But yeah, Amy, I'll leave it over to you.
Thank you. So yeah, we're actually at the end of the meeting. So thank you so much to everyone who attended and contributed today. And a special thank you to our speakers and Pursuit of Happiness CIC for monitoring the hands. Black Forest Letchworth is committed to actions. If you have been delegated an action today, please follow through. I think in the minutes, there are a few actions, links to look at, and suggestions of people you can email. The minutes and recordings of this meeting will be sent to you, provided that we have your email, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for coming.